Hello and welcome back to training by Kyle Simpson at Simpson Studios. Doing some Cubase training. I guess you could consider this part 4 of opening Cubase for the first time, learning the basics. Got a lot of the basic stuff out of the way, just very, very basic functions, enough to be able to sit down and create a track and arm it and hit record and get some demos done so you can send it off to your producer or even learning to do it on your own. I have quite a few bands that I'll get them set up to do a demo rig just like this at their house so they can do scratch tracks, and we'll Dropbox folders and Cubase projects and go back and forth. And so then when they're ready to come in and actually do final recordings of all their tracks, we all have an idea of exactly where we're going and what we're going to do. So it definitely just getting things structured and organized, it's good for everyone to know. So as I was saying in the previous video, part 3, we were going to go ahead and head into the next window, which is the mixer window. Now, you have a couple different directions you can go. It's going to be up in your devices, mix console, or F3. Now, for me, I always hit F3. For Mac, I believe it's Command F3, or Option, excuse me. For Windows, it's just F3. And there we have it. Big old mixer. Looks very repetitive, but it has lots of great tools. Now, before we get started, I'm going to create, just to make things a little easier, some more tracks. I'll show you why, and we'll come back to the mixer. Now, what I'm showing you here is that we have red faders and we have white faders. Red faders, you can see down here at the bottom, track 1 through 16. Now, if you're running a 2-channel interface, it'll normally be just one fader, and it'll be stereo, and it's just one by itself, and then all the rest of the faders are white. What these are your main inputs, your pre-faders. Like it's picking up my microphone for the tutorial video. What it is, this here is what you are actually receiving into your interface. So this is great for when if you're starting off and you record a track and it looks like this. Well, that's because you didn't come over here and check to see if I was talking. If I was talking and it's just hovering up here in the red the entire time, that's obviously an indicator that I need to turn down my preamp or the gain knob that would be on your interface. So now sometimes we're recording too quiet. Technically, if I was doing vocals, recording a vocal track, this is a little too quiet. Right where this old indicator was right here, around -6 to -12 decibels, this is about where I like my vocal track to be. And then when it records, it's looking about like this, which is a great gain to have. Now, this is if I don't have any zoom, any magnification on. If I have it all the way down, it's still looking about like this, and it's just a nice gain to have. So this is great. On your interface, when you check your mic or check your input, I mean, it'll give you a quick little flash of red. But it's a little easier to use Cubase to see visually exactly where you're hanging out at. Because if you're strumming your guitar and you're wondering why you have no gain coming into your amp, well, maybe your guitar is hanging around, way down here at the bottom, and well, no wonder. So crank up your preamp and get the guitar a little bit hotter, and that's things that your hardware interface itself normally doesn't show you. So this is really handy to have in Cubase. To be able to see your raw inputs. Now, white faders are the channels, the tracks here, these 8 that I just created. So now you see there was the vox, or the vocal track, through 8. So right here is your, I guess you could call, post tracks. These are what has already been recorded and what you're listening to. So, one thing for you to look at, now a lot of times I probably should have shown this a little earlier, so I'll do it right now. Between the recording view and the mixer view, you have this little icons, 3 little blocks. It's a layout window. And what it does is a lot of times, well, I won't say a lot of times, every time you boot up Cubase for the very first time, it's going to be a little packed. They pack in all these racks full of stuff everywhere, and you know, this all isn't really necessary. There's other ways to get to it without cramping up your recording area. That's why I have two monitors, because it's just, if you're going to be running this stuff, and especially if you're going to be doing it full time, it's great to have 2 different monitors. I have the mixer normally on my other monitor, and then my recording on this one, so I'm never having to sit here and, you know, work back and forth. I mean, you get a little cramped. So if you're starting up a studio, or you're wanting to get serious about things, I would definitely, that would be a good step, is to get two monitors. Makes the things so much easier, a little more organized and laid out. Anyway, all that to say, this button also goes for the mixer. The first time you come in here, you've got your channel selector. I mean, but you know, some people love this stuff. But see, here's a channel selector of what you're looking for. For me, yeah, this cramps me personally. I don't like that. So this right here, this little box, will give you the controls you need to look and see your control room. I mean, it gives you, some people love it. You know, some people love having everything right there. For me, if I need it, that's why I'll come up to the windows or devices and find what I need up here when I need it, instead of it being in my face all the time. So for me, I like it big, open, and clean. So that is just the basic there. Now, as far as the individual tracks, you see here, you have 5 different bars here. Your first one's routing. Now with routing, it's the same thing as what I was showing you over in your track selector when you choose your input and your output. So if I select this as 7, that is 9, this is 12, this is 2. Okay, now I come over here. Now you see what all I've selected. So you can quickly go through and route and do the same thing if you need to. Now, same thing with the routing. There's a stereo. This is your inputs. This is your outputs. Source, destination. Whichever ones you need, whatever you need to do. So you can click this routing and get rid of that. Next, same thing, will be inserts. This is literally all doing the exact same thing as if we were over here. But a lot of people like to do a lot of this stuff over in the mixer view. Some people just like the old-fashioned way of doing it, and I personally do too. One of the main differences for being over here, especially when you're starting to do your actual mixing, so you're going to be coming through here, and it's just much easier to be able to visually see everything, especially if you're running like an auto fader system, you know, a Cubase like controller with auto faders, motorized faders, hardware. It'll all connect to this. It's really handy. But there's one track that you cannot control in here versus being in the recording view, and that is the main stereo out. This is where, if you are mastering in the box, by that I mean you're not using external hardware to master, but you are mastering inside the program, which like most people, even myself, do now. Only here in this mixer is where you're going to be able to get to it. So this is where you'll want to come in and add your mastering tools and do it from here. And then you can, you know, check your levels and see how hard you're crunching, you know, with your maximizer, things like that. So the mixer view is great. Now, let's take, for instance, I've recorded everything. We've got 9 tracks. Let's say I've got something on every single track, and I'm done recording through my interface. Well, now I got all these annoying red faders, and I'm trying to see what's going on. Again, it's all a part of cleaning up. So if you come up here, you got your little filter button right here. We got your layout area. Then you can use this to find a track specifically. If you're running like 60, 70 tracks, sometimes you get lost and it's like, where is that bass track at? You can use the magnifier tool and search. Like for me, let's see, I need that Vox track. Well, there it is. I can double click it. It sends me right over to it. These little guys right here, these little tools are fantastic. And I mean, I can go into detail of every one of these. A lot of them, the standard person probably won't use every single day. I know I don't. But there are some neat little search tools. I mean, I've done some tracks where I am using 60, 70 tracks, and it is really hard to get in and find what you're looking for. So that search tool is great. The layout tool is great. I usually just make my adjustments when I first open Cubase. The next one I wanted to show you is the channel filter. So if I drop this down, what you're seeing here, all these colors, see input channels, it's red, audio channels are white. Then there's MIDI channels, there's all these different ones that you can look at. If you don't want to see those channels, all you have to do is click that button. So I'm done recording. I don't want to see these input channels. Punch in that little button, and now they disappear, and all I'm looking at now are my 9 white faders and my stereo output. And it makes things much easier to deal with, much easier. So, I mean, it could be the opposite. If you're recording all 16 tracks, like say for a live recording, and you don't want to be looking at your post faders, then same thing, get rid of them. And it just makes them invisible. So now all you're seeing is your stereo out and your 16 raw input faders. So you can do this with MIDI tracks. I mean, you can do it with anything. And it makes it nice. It's all about just being organized. Again, your workflow, your efficiency, and what you need, all the little tools that you need to help you do things efficiently. I want to say quicker, but that you can relate do things quicker to rushing. And obviously you don't rush art, you don't rush music, you don't rush the project, but there you can be extremely efficient to where you're kicking things out left and right. And it all depends on your workflow. So next on the list, I showed you same thing, inserts, routing. It's all just like in the recording view. Same thing with EQ. Now in here you can actually get more detailed. Some people love to just do it the raw old-fashioned way, actually, you know, doing affecting numbers. You can go here if you're trying to be quick. You can click on the screens for the EQ. This is nice if you know what you're doing, what you're wanting to do. Let me drop that out. Your channel strip is great. Let me again, this thing can be adjusted anyway. Now, sometimes when you open up, let me turn my magnification off. Sometimes when you open up Cubase, it looks like this. That's okay for some people. For me, I mix visually and by ear at the same time. And what I mean by that is if an audio is playing, I'm going to let it record. If I want to show you, this works. Maybe this is just me taking advantage of the new digital interface when it comes to this kind of stuff. So again, just like before, G and H expands and contracts the track view, just like it does over in the main recording area. So now, same thing. Sometimes you'll just come into a program, you'll come up to a project and it looks like this. Like it just kind of has a mind of its own sometimes. Just hit H, you can stretch it out, and now you can see your decibel lines. For me, I like seeing my decibel lines. There are certain decibels when I'm mixing tracks that I'm looking for, depending on what the instrument is. There's certain decibels I hit, you know, like bass or kick drum or snare. Sometimes some of those initial parts of mixing, I will visually look at where I want them to be, and then all the rest of the tracks I mix by ear, according to where I set those first essential instruments. So that being said, again, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. Now, you have all these different view controls. See, I can grab here on this orange bar if you're kind of, you know, you want to get a better look at what's going on up here. Same thing, got noise gate, we got we've got a compressor now. I love the when Cubase 7 came out, they modeled this after like the SSL board, and you can kind of see the same thing here. So EQ tools like a de-esser. I mean, these are fantastic tools. I mean, you can use third-party plugins like I do. Nothing wrong with that. But definitely check these out too. Noise gate, standard compressor, full-blown EQ, which this links obviously to your graphic EQ. That's why they're already all expanded out. A de-esser, fantastic for vocals. Magneto, which is awesome. This is a tape saturator. This is great. Really help warm up your tracks if you don't actually have a tape machine. And then an overall maximizer if you need a little more kick to your track, to your individual tracks. So Cubase, their goal is obviously to give you everything you needed. But some people aren't happy with it. That's okay. If you got your third-party plugins, great. But if you're on a budget and you're able to get all this stuff and get yourself going, by all means, use it. Figure it out. And the last one is your output sends. It's the same thing. So, that is the basics of the mixer. You can do pretty much all the same functionality that you can do in the recording area. You can get to all the little things like your inserts and your sends, your channel strip stuff, your EQ, your routing, your fader volume, your panning, your solos and mutes. So you can hit that E like I was showing you earlier and do the same thing. Edit your channel. Faders, you can double click, name your tracks. And that is something I will give anybody, when it comes, just like a tiny piece of advice. Get in the habit of naming your tracks. Please get in the habit of titling your tracks whatever they are. I have had bands send me their tracks, their Cubase projects, and they'll have 20 or 30 tracks, and this is what they look like. Audio 4, Audio 5. And I have to solo out each one and figure out what they are, and then double click, and then, name it. So it's a great habit to get into, even for yourself, not just for someone else. It's just when you're rushing through and you're like, oh, what are all these? I'm looking for the bass and I don't know which one is the bass. Should have named your track. I would definitely just it's a great habit to have, to go through and name your track, especially when you come over here. You don't know what's what. The only two things I know what's what are the verse or the vocal track and the guitar track. Everything else, unless I sit here and solo out each one, I will have no idea what they are. Get in the habit, name your tracks. I promise in the long run it will be worth it. A lot of people don't do it, and again, efficiency, production time, it's useless time. It's time being wasted. You definitely don't want that. So that's the basics of the mixer. We will definitely get into more things about it whenever I pull up. I'm going to do a later tutorial where I'm going to pull up a full track of a band that I've produced recently and kind of show you some things that are actually in the works and how things are going actually in the field. That'll give you a better idea of how to get around some things. Just another thing, if you want to just do little random things. This is outside of the mixer. Again, this is part of the interface. You'll see if you have your mouse over an area, you'll get a little glowy box. You can double click that. And you've got all kinds of little icons. Some people love to put the icons down. That's my vocal track. Cool. Come here. This is my guitar track. So let's put a guitar down. And this can be really great to have when you're, again, rushing through, trying to find what you're looking for. I mean, I think drums, I have an entire picture of a drum kit or bass drum. I mean, they got all kinds of, it helps. It helps a lot. It's, again, great to have in the habit of naming stuff and imaging stuff, and you'll know where everything is all the time. One thing I wanted to, just the last thing here, again, some people like, when it comes to being organized, to set things in certain colors. So me, I'm old-fashioned. I just like the gray look. But you can, when you click a track, you got this little arrow right here. You can select, so maybe you want all of your guitars to be this color, you know, and you want all of your vocals to be, you know, hot pink, or that's glowing, what, violet purple, somewhere in between there. But you got, you know, you can colorize all your tracks, you know, make it easy on yourself. Anyway, that is the main rundown here. And again, when you're mixing, if you've got all of your guitars as one color, it makes it easy to find. So we will get into more details. There's all kinds of other tools here, but that's the basics. I would say this wraps up the very basics of getting around Cubase and getting started, at least enough to make a demo. Other than that, we'll get started on some more fun stuff here pretty quick. We'll go into a little more detailed things. Once you feel comfortable with what you've seen and you're ready to take the next step, then we'll start the next series.